Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Britton's Hangout Hour, episode 48. I can't believe we're almost to 50. I am here today with Jake from the Cultured Bumpkin. How you doing today, sir?
Man, doing good. Appreciate you having me.
Um, yeah, you've done a lot of things on your channel,
Yep.
mostly reading.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of started it just as an audiobook type of a deal. And lately, I would say in the last few months, I've done more video. So,
Mm,
yeah, it's kind of because I'm a voice actor. That's my trade. I'm not a screen actor. I'm a voice actor. So,
mm.
most of my stuff is audio.
So, do you do like cartoons or like do you do like audiobooks? Because you have like a good voice for it.
Thank
Does
you.
he have do you have like audiobooks? And I tried looking you up on Audible. I didn't see anything. So plus
I'm on several different names on Audible. So I've done maybe 30 audiobooks in different genres. And then because usually like if I have a different genre, I use I think I was my first few were Jacob Phillips. So I think there's a few, but I'm not really proud of any of those. Those were when I was first starting out, and they're kind of I don't think they're that good. Um, so I have a few like pin names you might say that I use on Audible, but yeah, I do a lot of commercial voiceovers. Do a lot of video games and cartoons and documentaries, and yeah, it's just what I do full time. So I'm always doing some kind of thing with my voice.
oh, that must be cool.
Yeah,
How'd you start the Cultured Bumpkin? It's
well,
always something I like to ask when we do these things or when I
yeah.
do these things.
So I love classic literature,
Mm,
and a lot of stuff is easy to find. Let's say, if I like Mark Twain, I can go on Audible and find, a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, most likely, and it'll probably be a really good version
mm,
because it's a whole novel. But he's got a multitude of short stories that no one's recorded, or
mm.
at least that I couldn't find anyway. And so, what I kind of did was I started a podcast that I wanted to listen to, and that was doing, poems and short stories
As you do.
largely. Yeah, that kind of like, oh, I like this, and that's what I'll do. And as a voice actor, it's phenomenal practice. Like if no one listened to my podcast or YouTube, that would be okay because I'm still going to create content because it's great practice. You know.
Yeah, but yeah, you've covered a lot of things on your channel. I actually discovered you because like I really like Shakespeare,
Okay.
and I like hearing people recite Shakespeare because I've learned from my experience that sometimes it's more educational to see it performed rather than
Yeah.
read because Shakespeare wrote entertainment basically for people to watch,
Yeah.
kind of like movies we have nowadays. Though yeah, there's still plays. So
Yeah.
that's how I found you. You've covered a lot of people. Like you're doing like Pride and Prejudice right now.
I just did chapter 55 of 61, so I'm almost finished with it, and I'll just do that live. But then I'll pull the audio and make it into a audiobook that I'll post on. I'll probably make it available on Audible eventually, but I'll just put it up on YouTube, so the YouTube audience, will always have it free. But yeah, right now I'm doing Pride and Prejudice. I'm doing Jane Eyre, and I'm doing it in Southern, so it's a different take.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
it's not the same as Rosamund Pike doing Pride and Prejudice. That's a masterpiece on its own. Um,
I've seen your redneck Shakespeare. That's pretty fun.
yeah, yeah, that is fun.
Like I've seen you even had conversations on your channel about Shakespeare. So I watched those the other day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Melanie, what's her what is her last name? Murray, Melanie Murray. She's a high school literature teacher, and I talked with her the other day, and she's just got some great viewpoints, and she really knows how to like present it to people in a way that makes you want to go listen to it.
Yeah, teachers tend to do that very well. So,
Well, good teachers do.
good teachers, yes.
Yeah, and she's a good teacher.
Um, but yeah, you've covered oh man, who I'm probably not even gonna get them all, but you've covered I think you've covered Poe,
I
William
do a lot of
Blake.
Poe, a lot of his short stories and
Um,
poems. I
I
love
saw you
Poe.
did a Jack London video a while back, which cool.
Yep. Uh,
Wordsworth. I think I've seen you do the Ancient Mariner, the Rime of the Ancient
mhm.
Mariner.
Yep.
Um, you've done well Jane Austen, of course. I think the first video I watched from you was um, the I call you misbeliever speech from
Okay.
it was version you it was in an English accent.
That was I probably from Merchant of Venice, I guess. I think
Yeah,
in that like
yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, so you've done a lot of stuff on your channel.
Yeah, just goof around,
Um so like what like I mean, I guess I already asked you what attracted you to make Cultured Bumpkin, but like what attracted you to like classical literature in general in the first place?
Well, I grew up in a household where reading was sort of smiled upon. So I'm glad. I'm glad because my dad was an absolute jock in high school. He didn't read. He thought it was sissy to read all this stuff. And as he got older and more mature, he was like, "No, I want my sons to be readers. I don't want them to not read." The most open-minded people are the ones who like read. They get out and read things they agree with. They read things they don't agree with, and reading is just good for you. So it was because of my parents, but I really saw the need for it. I used to be in the Army, so I was an Army officer. We
Mm.
were getting ready to go go to the Middle East, and um, I just hated my life. You know what I mean? It was like I was under so much responsibility. We was always in desert areas, bleak and hot as Hades, and just I didn't enjoy my career at the time. And reading the classics, and at one point it was Jane Austen, all of her novels, which is only 6 or 7, and then Tolkien. I got into Tolkien, the Lord of the
Mm.
Rings, while I was in the desert. So it was a sweet release from all of my surroundings. Just a few minutes a day, but I would crack my book open and I would be in Middle Earth, or I would be in, you know, Longbourn House with Mr. Bingley
Regal
calling.
England.
Yeah, just, people are nice to each other, or at least had good manners about it whether they were or not. And it was just a nice escape. So that's kind of where I started. Was in the Army is when I was like, man, I really like classic literature because it really moves me. It sort of gets me away, it takes me far away to a place that I'd rather be.
So like how did you find voice acting in general? Was that just something you always enjoyed doing or
No, in fact, I mean, I think everybody, imitates their cartoon characters to their friends. I mean, I suppose everybody does that, and I'm sure that I did. But my also in the Army, so I was a platoon leader.
a lot of this came from the army, I see.
Yeah,
I
it
guess
did.
being in the military gets you thinking about your life.
It does, and it can sort of you know, send you down little paths, or keep you from going down paths. Like, oh, I thought I wanted to do that thing. I definitely don't want to do that anymore. But in my case, my platoon sergeant, who was from Montana, um, and I was, like I said, born and raised in Mississippi. I'd never really thought about being able to change the way I talk. It was just, you're just born the way you talk, just that's how I talk. That's where I'm from. That, nothing I can do about it. Well, uh, so that's how I talked back then. And my platoon sergeant one day pulled me aside and was like, "Hey, sir, none of us can understand you. Okay. We get over there and you're doing all that on the radio, somebody's going to get hurt. So you need to learn to talk." And I was like,
Oh no.
"Holy crap. What a what a thing to say." It hurt my feelings. But then I was like, "No, he's right though. I mean, I'm not going to argue with him. That's true." Um, one of the greatest pieces of classic literature is the King James Bible, and in it it says, if the something like, if the trumpet give an uncertain sound in the day of battle, who shall prepare himself, or something like that.
Hmm.
Something to the
Yeah.
effect of, if you're trying to send a signal that no one can understand, you're not going to be communicating when you're trying to fight somebody. And that was the first time that I sort of, and I wasn't thinking about voice acting, but that was the first time it entered my head that I could, do something about the way that I talk. So I started, okay, I'm going to try to speak, where everybody can understand me. The guy from Connecticut and the guy from California and everybody in between. Okay. And so that remains the best voice acting coaching I ever gotten was from a platoon sergeant saying, learn to talk. and, but then I guess fast forward, no, it was okay. The same guy, the same sergeant that told me this
Must be a
was
really helpful guy.
didn't mean to be, but it turns out he was a real artistic guy. He appreciated the arts, and he had like season tickets, you might say, to the I think the local Kansas. It was in Fort Riley, Kansas, and Kansas State has a really good theater. It certainly did back then, anyway. Like their theater program, and they put on these great productions. It was like a Lyceum series or something. So he and his wife had, tickets to the Lyceum series for each season. And one time they were playing like Romeo and Juliet or something, and he was like, "Hey, sir, this is the same guy who had told me like a few months before, to learn to talk. Hey, my wife's out of town. I got this extra ticket. You want to be my date to Romeo and Juliet?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll go." And so we went on this little mandate to Romeo and Juliet, and I remember being like, "Oh, that's good." Like I had never seen it performed before. I'd read some plays and monologues and stuff, but I'd never seen it play out on the stage. And that's kind of I kind of fell in love with the idea of performing. So it's like that looks fun. I would like to do that.
Yeah,
And
yeah, no, sometimes it's best to watch Shakespeare,
well, that's true with any play. I mean, you take your favorite movie and someone just throws you the script to it, that's not going to be near as fun as watching it. A play is meant to be performed and watched, not just, read. And Shakespeare is certainly no different. As brilliant as it is, it's more fun to watch it.
Oh yeah, it's I first really got into Shakespeare. I was in my 8th grade theater class cuz I dabbled in a bunch of things when I was in the middle school, high school era of my life, and theater was one of those things, and I actually enjoyed theater. I don't know why I didn't keep up with it, but it is what it is. Um but yeah, we learned a lot about Shakespeare, and it was a lot of fun, and I just kind of fell in love with it.
I think it's I think it's good. Anybody that's an actor or voice actor in some way, they ought to at least look into some Shakespeare because those are such well-written characters that you can get the emotion that you're looking for out of, it's good practice reps.
Oh yes, I one of my yeah, I was introduced to like Richard III and the Scottish play, and I knew what Hamlet was. I'm sure I knew what it was, but I didn't really understand it till I was older. Or well, when I was in high school anyway, I didn't really get it.
Yeah.
So I was like, huh? Because like sometimes the teachers will just be like, "Here's Shakespeare, read it, kids," and you're like, "What?"
Right. Yeah, it's good to have someone sort of guide you through it, especially since the language back then was so much better than now we're texting emojis and stuff to each other. Back then they would actually say stuff. Made sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and the good teachers would be like, okay, I'll be nice and let you guys watch Shakespeare so you can see what they're actually going for.
Right.
So that was very helpful. And you also learn a lot of things. Like Shakespeare is really funny and also has some really dirty stuff in there.
Yeah. And it's so relatable. People think because they don't talk in the same exact way as we do now, which is not a good thing. Um, then it's like, oh, it's got nothing for me. But somewhere in Shakespeare's plays, there is a character that's going through what you're going through.
Oh yes, like
You
there's a
know,
lot
and
of like just people hanging out and doing stuff.
yeah,
Though
and
I'm more of like because I like darker stuff, so I like the like Shakespeare scheming plays, I guess.
mhm. Yeah, Richard III.
Yeah, or Hamlet. Though I think Hamlet is meant to be satirical in some ways. That I think is kind of lost because we're not as I don't want to say we're not as educated, but we're not we're not like, oh, this is what he was going for. Like it's kind of been lost to the cracks. I guess is a good way to say.
Yeah. Well, in our age of like Twitter, where everything we try to cram everything into 100 and whatever characters, there's a brevity that's good, but also it makes it hard for some people to sit with an idea of hearing someone think through a whole line of thought. Some people can't follow it.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, no, he's great. I enjoy Shakespeare. It's really hard to it's sometimes hard to put it into words because it's like, oh yeah, Shakespeare, the bard. What is there to say that hasn't already been said? But there's some stuff in there that's really really good. I enjoy it a lot.
Oh yeah.
I also like the Merchant of Venice because there's a lot of cool stuff in there about like justice and also Shylock's a cool villain, even though he was probably meant to be kind of a anti-Semitic stereotype. But luckily, Shakespeare was good enough where it wasn't just that.
Well, one of the reasons that makes him a great villain is because when he describes why he's being that way, you understand, like, wait, somebody said that to you? That's why you're mad at him, is because he spat upon your Jewish gabardine? Like, oh man, if somebody spit on me, I'd probably be acting up too. And it's sort of you.
I thought that was meant to be figurative, but yeah, I get why he's mad.
Well, whether it is or not, it's like you were very disrespectful to me, in however, whether whatever way. And anytime we feel disrespected, if you're not careful, that brings out the worst in you. And so when Shylock says that, you're like, oh, I see. That makes sense why you would not like how you're being treated, because
I
he's
kind of
being
feel
a jerk.
sorry for you. Kind of, and also the main character at play is really a jerk. He's not a nice guy.
Yeah. And any great villain anywhere is going to have something adorable about them if they're a good written character.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's definitely yeah, it's a good one. There's a lot of good monologues in that one. I don't know if you watched I don't know if you watched like the BBC, like when they got like a bunch of actors, like they got Damian Winters from Band of Brothers to do
Lewis,
uh
Damian Lewis. He played
Damian.
Winters. Yeah.
Yeah, something. No, not Winters is his character name in
Right.
Band
Right.
of Brothers.
Yeah.
Damian Lewis. He did Julius Caesar. David Morrissey did Richard III. Patterson Joseph doing Merchant of Venice was
Yes.
really
I know
good.
exactly what the Shakespeare solos.
Yeah, the Shakespeare solos
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I
Those
was
are
like,
so
man,
good.
they're so good. I
Yep.
mean, to be honest, like if I were a teacher, I'd probably just show them that and be like, okay, how'd
Yeah.
that make you feel?
Right. And I have in my, like, on TikTok, I have a lot of comments and messages from teachers. They're like, "Hey, we use you in our class." That's always fun.
I'd be like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Hey, kids.
No, but oh yeah, I completely forgot that you also cover the Bible on your channel, and not just any old Bible, the King James version
Yeah.
or the Shakespeare one, as I've heard some people say.
Yeah. I mean, it was printed. Its first printing was in May of 1611, the same month that A Winter's Tale came out at the Globe. And then later that same year, 1611, The Tempest, I think November of that year, The Tempest came out. So, I mean, it's right smack dab in the middle of sort of the peak Shakespeare. And so, I mean, it's just unsurpassed.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, I think it was just they came out at the same time, so
Yeah.
and also Shakespeare is more. I mean, if you read it, you would probably get what he's saying. Or, well, maybe you can use Spark Notes and you'll probably get it. Because, the internet is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Or you can get the books from Barnes and Noble if you really wanted to.
Yeah. You can get like a little annotated version where it'll sort of, someone will give some commentary along in the column.
Mm-hmm. I know there's been so many like Shakespeare scholars and oh man. But yeah, no, you do the I think you mainly do the King James Bible though, right?
That's right. One, it's not copyrighted, so fair game.
um yeah, you've done like the works of John and I think you've done Psalm 23, haven't you?
Yeah, I've done Psalm 23. I've done Song of Solomon, Romans, Revelation, a lot of the epistles, you might say, of Paul the Apostle. So, and it just has a musicality to it that you're not going to find in a lot of the newer ones.
So I guess I should ask though. I think maybe you said this on your channel before, but like, are you religious or do you just appreciate the Bible as like a,
Well, I appreciate the Bible for sure.
or
I
you
mean,
just
I don't know if I would call myself religious. The In the Book of James, which I have not done, it said true religion before God is this to like take care of orphans and widows and keep yourself unspotted from the world. So like I try to be religious like that, but not according to sort of modern Christendom religion. You know what I'm saying? Depends on what the definition of religious is, I suppose.
like would you say like you're a Christian or
Yes, I would say that. I would
okay
say that. Yeah.
okay. I was like, because I'm like, I know there's people who aren't religious, but they appreciate the King James Bible as
Yeah. I mean,
like
George
as
Bernard Shaw was a communist atheist, and he said the King James Bible is a masterpiece. You have to read it to sort of understand Western thought and culture. So, I think that's a very, um, I agree with that position.
don't listen to me, listen to him. um, yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because like I don't. It's weird. I don't read a lot of poetry, but I like hearing it. Like
Mhm,
it's
mhm.
really, and it's kind of like what we were talking about with Shakespeare. Like I sometimes feel like when you hear it be spoken aloud, I think there's a bigger impact. At least in my experience, that's how it's been. I don't know if it's like that with everyone. I know there's people who like to actually read it, and I don't mind reading poetry. It's just I like hearing it a lot. I think again, kind of like Shakespeare, you kind of, or at least for me anyway, you get a bigger experience out of it.
Yeah, I think there's a King Solomon said, "A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold and pictures of silver." Like when you say something right, oh, it sounds good. Like it's like, whoa. So I think that, and my goal as a voice actor, I actually have that written over the door, like the archway into my little padded room here. But like you can something like a beautiful poem can touch you, but when you hear, Sir Ian McKellen read that poem, it can touch you even more.
Yeah, I mean, I saw you, or I see sometimes you share like little shorts of people
Mhm,
reading Like I saw you did
mhm.
one of Stephen Fry the other day,
Oh,
and
yes.
yeah,
Ode to a Nightingale by John Keats.
and that was really good. He's a great voice.
He does. He's an amazing writer. He's a Renaissance man. He's an amazing writer, is a great interviewer. I mean, I don't know what he's like personally. I assume he's a delightful fellow to be around, but certainly in his interviews, he's a lot of fun to listen to.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if you've watched like Graham Norton,
Yeah, yeah, I like that show. I
um,
watch, bits of it on YouTube, I should say.
or well, yeah, exactly, yeah. I've seen like clips of YouTube, and yeah, he seems like an interesting man to talk to, like at least.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's but yeah, no, I mean, my grandma even because she grew up reading the King James Bible. She grew up in the '50s, so
Mhm.
the that was before they put it into more modern English. So yeah, she still knew the 23rd Psalm from memory. So
Mhm.
it's quite neat.
Yeah. Back to Stephen Fry. If anyone of your listeners um, is, whether you're familiar or not, a great resource is he wrote this sort of a trilogy of the Greek myths
Oh yeah, I've
called
seen that around.
Mythos, Heroes, and Troy. And not only did he write the books, he also narrated the audiobooks, and they're amazing. there's nothing better than a well-written book narrated by the author that is a highly trained classical actor. That's just a match made in heaven, and those audiobooks are amazing. Plus, you just learn so much about the Greek myths, but it's in the modern vernacular, and he makes it so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, I even see you did a Christmas Carol. God, I've seen a lot of ratings of Christmas Carol. There's a channel on YouTube, Mike's Book Reviews.
Okay.
He did one this last Christmas, which I really liked a lot. I haven't listened to yours yet. Didn't you do like a redneck Scrooge like not too long
Yeah, no,
ago?
I did the whole thing in Southern.
Oh,
So, Scrooge is just is he's Scrooge, and a friend of mine he's a theater actor, and he's played Scrooge over 20 times on stage. Um, he was like, "Hey man, I love that. Like we need to do a little radio drama, and I want you to be Scrooge." And I was like, "No, you're Scrooge." And he said, "Not redneck Scrooge. I want it to be redneck Scrooge." Um,
so I'm sure he's
so
just like a grumpy like Southern gentleman.
well, it's like my grandpa. That's who it is. Hey, just like, hey, get out of here. I don't want to talk to you no more. The I did it on TikTok last Christmas, and I got banned for bullying. It said bullying behavior. So
Oh
it said
no.
it was only like a month or something, but I it was like you can't go live for a month, and I was like, what did I do? And I looked, and it was like on this such and such a live, you were banned for bullying behavior, so you can't go live. So I took that as a tremendous compliment that I was
Is
being
that
good. I was a good Scrooge.
that's hilarious.
Yeah. So this year I was just like, you know what, screw TikTok. I'm just going to do it on YouTube. So I think I did it in 3 sessions, like live. So those are on there. But then I went back and edited, the audio and put it into a like a 3-hour audiobook, I think it is, and then posted it as well. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. That's a
Yeah.
great story.
Oh yeah, it is. I actually covered it on my channel not
Oh,
too long
nice.
ago. I didn't read it. I'm not a, or well, I've done some readings because I'm like, why not? Because I'm kind of just seeing what works and what doesn't. But
Yeah.
yeah, I like your channel a lot. You do read. I'm just looking here on like on my phone on your YouTube and like my God, there's so many. You got
Well, I
Oh
appreciate that.
Henry. I
Oh,
really
oh,
enjoyed
Henry.
Oh Henry in
I
middle
love O.
school.
Henry. Ransom of Red Chief might be my favorite short story. But he's got huge vocabulary. He's so funny. Some of his characters, the cop and the anthem, like the kind of little twist at the end. I mean, it's just great stories, great characters.
I really enjoy a Retrieved Reformation a lot.
Mm.
I read it in school and I'm like, ooh.
I've got one. Now I haven't narrated that one by myself. I do have a recording on my YouTube of my younger brother who's a cinematographer. Like he's been to
Oh
Sundance
wow.
Film Festival. Like he's amazing cinematographer. He is a terrible reader. So this was me and him, or he and I did a duet. So I said, okay, I'm going to be the characters. So anytime it's like, and he said, I'll do the character, and then you just narrate. So it was he and I. He would narrate, and then I would do the characters, and then we had fun. So it's kind of a bad. There's a lot of shenanigans going on. It's not a very pretty book, but it's hilarious because he's terrible. But we had fun.
Even did Tennessee Will. I didn't know he wrote poetry though. I know
He
he
did.
did plays.
I am actually from
I
he.
I know
He
he
and I are
did.
from the same
I know he
town.
even did pulp stories. Believe it or not, because like um, I like some of those old weird tale. I like Robert E. Howard a lot. So
Yeah,
um,
Tennessee Williams and I were from the
he's
same
a great one to
town.
read aloud.
Okay, I haven't done him.
If you ever if you ever are like get bored and want to do something like that's more pulpy. But there's a great well, like you said earlier, musicality to Robert E. Howard. I enjoy a lot.
Okay, to check him out.
Um, but I knew he did I knew he did pulp short stories. I knew he did plays. I didn't know he did poetry.
Yeah, yeah, he was a writer.
um, Do you ever watch? Do you ever? I'm guessing you've seen some of his plays because I've only seen a Streetcar Named Desire,
Yeah, well, I
the
mean,
old
bits and
movie
pieces. I've
series.
never sat down and watched a whole movie or a whole. Well, no, I take that back. This year I saw one called "The Eccentricities of a Nightingale," and I saw that full play, live at sort of a local theater. But I've
Hmm.
never seen like a professional production of something full length.
Oh, you even got redneck William Wallace from Braveheart. That should be
That's
fun.
right.
I haven't
Yeah,
seen
that's
that
right.
one yet. Yeah, that's the thing with your channel. You just crank them out. I'm like, I can't keep up.
Yeah, just try to stay busy. When I'm not getting paid for something, a script, I'm making something up on my own. Or the thing about this is it's the classic, so they're well written, and then just put them in a different accent, maybe to sort of, oh, I never thought of it like that, or whatever. And so yeah.
But I mean, I guess I think what's cool about your redneck readings of classic literature is that like you still can see what they're getting at. Even it kind of illustrates the timelessness of those stories. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll admit I've never actually read Pride and Prejudice all the way through, but I know the story well enough.
Hmm.
I saw the film a long time ago. The
Which one do you like better?
I've only seen the one with Keira Knightley, and I liked it.
Okay.
It was pretty good. Like not generally my type of story, but it's some good stuff in there. I like it. I might have to
Yeah.
read. I might have to actually sit down and read it at some point because
It's
like there's a lot of people who love that, and I'm like, I want to see what the fuss is about.
yeah. Funny. Mark Twain hated her.
He did.
Oh yeah, he's like, oh, she's the worst. Now they didn't even live at the same time, so they weren't contemporaries or anything. But I think she died around 18, shoot, 20, if or before 1817, somewhere in there, 1817, 1819, 20, somewhere in there. And then he was born. I don't remember the day the date of his birth, but he wasn't active when she was active. But yeah, he did not like her. So it's kind of like, well, other not,
Different
if
strokes, I
you don't
guess.
like her, that's okay.
I
Mark
mean,
Twain didn't either.
Oscar Wilde didn't like Charles Dickens, and I don't
Right.
like Oscar Wilde. So there you go.
Okay, have you ever read A Model Millionaire?
I
It's a
have
short
not.
story. Okay,
I've only read Dorian Gray, and I was like, eh.
well, that's I like funny short stories.
Okay.
Okay, I love O. Henry. I love Mark
So I was
Twain.
about
That
to say,
kind
yeah, I'm like, oh Henry, because oh Henry's
right.
hilarious. Like
I
Ransom of
so
Red Chief is great.
it
He,
is. It's
so
just
funny.
so even though it's like two desperate men who kidnap a kid, it's still innocent in some way. You know what I mean? Because they're like actually trying to take care of the guy, and he's the one terrorizing them. It's funny. Um, but A Model Millionaire by Oscar Wilde, and I've recorded it, but you could find it on AmericanLiterature.com or something like that. It is a hilarious, uh, great story. And I thought I didn't like Oscar Wilde either because I'd read, I think it was Pictures of Dorian Gray or parts of it or something. And I was like, well, I read this and I said, okay, he's good. It makes me want to circle back and check out some of his other stuff.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people like to make fun of Dickens. It's not. I don't think that's fair. Even though I've only read 3 of his books, I love him a lot. So.
I mean, he's wordy, but that's beautiful in its own way. You know what I mean? I love that.
Oh yeah, I mean, A Tale of Two Cities. I wouldn't call that an easy read by any stretch of the imagination, but great stuff.
I mean,
Really good.
amazing storytelling. I love Dickens.
Yeah, I mean, Oliver Twist was one of my favorite books growing up, and I still enjoy it a lot. I mean, I read those old illustrated classics when I was in school,
Yeah, yeah, I had those.
I initially liked the pictures, and then I started
Right.
reading the stories. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool.
Yep.
Oh,
I remember I'd go to the Dollar Tree. You have the Dollar Tree where you're from?
oh yeah, yeah. We
Oh,
we have
okay.
Dollar Trees out here.
So this was, I mean, I don't know how old you are. I think I'm much, much older than you, but I would go and they were back then, it was actually less than $1. And they would have the little paperback books, and I would get them. I'd like earn money washing dishes or something, and then go in there with a few quarters and buy my next classic. That was always fun.
I also see Poe. I'm a huge fan of Poe.
Yeah, I've done a lot of Poe stuff.
His poetry, I'm kind of on, but I mean, I do like The Raven, of course. But like his poetry's like kind of, I'm like, yeah. But his short stories though are just, I love it. Or at least I
There,
do.
I love his short story. I am not a I don't consider myself a gothic kind of a fan, and yet I adore Poe. So maybe that, and maybe I guess that means I am somewhat a fan of gothic. If you, but
In the right
Poe's awesome.
context, I get you. I get you.
Poe's awesome, and I would say that his poetry, obviously, The Raven is well known and a classic, but a lot of his other poetry is very moving. Um,
Also like the Conqueror Worm because that one's just weird.
it is, and it's I don't know. I think it's very. He was not a religious man, but it is very biblical in its view of man, which is interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I mean it's interesting when you actually read the Bible because like there's a lot of weird stuff in the Bible. Like, there's like mention of giants in the Old Testament and like these like weird kind of strange beings that are technically angels, but would probably terrify most people.
well, even in the stories, anytime one of those guys shows up, whoever they're talking to ends up sort of groveling in the dirt. So it's kind of like, well, apparently they were scary some way. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if you've ever read Lovecraft, but I wonder if he read the Bible and he was like, hmm, hmm.
I read. I think I've done one Lovecraft. I did. Not Dagon. That's the one I did. Dagon.
Oh, that's one of his first ones, I think.
Yeah, it's in the public domain, which is why I did it. So yeah, it's definitely one of his early ones. Kind of the first time the Cthulhu sort of shows up or whatever.
Oh yeah. Um. Oh, you even did. Yeah, I actually watched your She Walks in Beauty. I actually watched it yesterday because I was like,
Okay,
know.
I love Byron.
um.
Some of the stuff.
I'm like, hey, this is actually pretty nice, and they said he was mad, bad, and dangerous to know.
Yeah, I think he was an absolute dirtbag, but I love his writing.
It's kind of interesting with the romantics. It's kind of like reading old science fiction from the golden age. A lot of the personalities of the people who wrote those things are really fascinating.
Yeah, and apparently he was, well known in his time or whatever, which not everybody was. Some of them don't become known till way after their death, but he was well known, and his he was having like an affair with some married woman. Well, the married woman, I think, divorced her husband, got remarried, and then Byron died, and then this guy was known to introduce his wife at parties as like, hey, she banged Byron, as if like, oh, I'm gonna get some social,
that was like
point because my
that
wife's
was
been with
like
Byron.
a
Like, dead gummit,
as
man.
like a badge of honor. That's
Yeah.
great.
Okay. At least he was dead. If he was still alive, that'd be pretty. That would be like,
I
what
mean,
are you?
imagine just being such a guy. You actually do what he did and go off to seek adventure in Greece during their like War of Independence or whatever that was, and die. You're just like, okay. A lot of them died. Like Shelley, I think drowned. I think Percy
Did
Shelley
he?
drowned.
Okay. I know a lot of them. A lot of those guys, especially the depressing ones, died young. Like Poe wasn't very old.
Yeah, that's weird. Like, yeah, Poe's death his story. It's kind of weird. His life story almost seems like out of something he would write. So I guess that makes sense. He wrote the way he did.
Right. I know on there's somebody, and I don't know. I've seen him comment on several um, Edgar Allan Poe stories throughout the internet. Like I've seen him post on other people's thing too. Anytime, like he'll come on and post this soliloquy about how Edgar Allan Poe didn't really write that and how he stole it. And there's this whole like long article he writes and plasters it up on your page. And it's like, man, I don't care. It's a great story. So yeah, some people, I don't know. There's a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding him apparently, but
Oh yeah, I mean, there's people
I'm like,
thinking, oh yeah,
it's
there's people who think that Shakespeare didn't write what he wrote. So I mean, but which I always ask this to the Shakespeare fans I talk with. Do you think he wrote it all, or do you not know enough about it, or
well, one, I would say I don't know enough about it.
okay?
Two, I would say, like, I saw someone ask David Tennant, the
Oh, I was
actor,
about to just
uh,
mention this.
and he was like, I don't care. And it's like, I'm kind of the same way. It's an amazing story. Also, I don't know enough to debate you about it, so
No, I mean,
it's
I'm
like,
kind of on the like,
you know what I
I
mean?
really don't care either. So I'm just
Right.
kind of
It's
I
like
just
it's a
like
great
hearing people's
story.
perspectives.
Right.
Like people who are kind of aware. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not unfortunately aware enough of the controversy to sort of say yay or nay. Other than I don't think it's controversial at all. Those are brilliant. Somebody did some amazing work. But I just, I give Shakespeare credit for it. And if I ever get
I
talked
haven't
out of
yet
it,
met anyone who's like maybe he didn't write all of it. But, I don't know.
most of the people that bring up that kind of thing are kind of, you know, interesting folks.
I think Mark Twain was one of those people. He's a weird
Really?
guy.
I mean, he was an interesting guy. I haven't read his thoughts on it. So that's, who knows?
um,
I wouldn't laugh at anybody for thinking that, but I just don't think that.
I mean, I was. I mean, you were mentioning Mark Twain earlier, which you're a Southerner, so I guess you would kind of feel bad if you didn't read Samuel Clemens at least once in your life, but because he is like the Southern writer, but interesting guy, like it was one of those people who like was insanely forward thinking, even in his time, like it was almost like he was born in the wrong time. Like you'd be great now.
Yeah, his humor sort of transcends time and culture. Like he could show up to a party and have everybody laughing. Because not everybody, I've read, other stuff by, let's say, this guy was hilarious in his day, and I read it, I'm like, I don't get that. Whereas Mark Twain, you get it.
Yeah, I mean, I've read. Well, I read The Adventures of Tom Sawyer when I was a kid. I really
Hmm.
enjoyed that. I actually read it for a school project when I was young, and I actually really enjoyed it. I was like, oh wow, this is really good. Like my dad read it to me. I'm like, oh wow, this is great. Thanks, Dad.
As far as audiobooks go, there's a fellow named Pat Fraley who's an amazing voice actor. He did an audiobook of that, and it is a masterpiece.
I'll have to listen to. I'll admit I don't. I'm really bad at listening to audiobooks. I'm not against them. I just get distracted really easily. I mean, it's probably just the time we live in now. But there's some I've enjoyed. There's this book series called The First Law by this guy named Joe Abercrombie. It's a fantasy series, and the audiobooks are done by a guy named Stephen Pacey. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. It's really good. So yeah.
Nice. I'm not familiar with those, but I always like getting sort of recommendations on both books and audiobooks. 'Cause
Um,
I try to learn from people.
I also listened to a little bit of Lenny Henry do Anansi Boys from Neil Gaiman. I like that a lot. Also, Neil
Okay,
Gaiman is a pretty good audiobook narrator himself.
interesting.
Or at least I think so. He has a nice voice for it.
Yeah.
I've met some people who are like, no, no. His voice is too soothing.
One thing I've decided, some people just want to be contrary, and you could have, Richard Burton doing Henry V, and there would be people that are like, "Oh, that sounds bad. I don't like it." Like, screw you, dude. You don't,
No,
whatever. So it doesn't matter how amazing this thing is. There will always be that one-star review for whatever reason.
yeah, I mean, I always think it's hilarious when I hear people go like, "Oh, look at these actors. They're so just decadent and depraved and disgusting. And I'm like, guys, they were doing that back in the 50s. Like, come on. Have you heard the legend of Marlon Brando? That man was insane.
Yeah, but I think the thing was the actors,
And
Hollywood actors haven't changed. It's just now society is cool with you doing that stuff in the open instead of like at a secret party somewhere.
also, like, the Romantics were doing that stuff. I'm like, dude, like, come on. This is not new.
Yeah, there was no new thing under the sun. Another King Solomon quote.
That's true. Um, I going back to the King James Bible. I like I've read like several versions of the Bible because I was raised Christian, and you kind of if you're raised Christian, then you kind of become, or at least if you pay attention in when you read it or when you're in class or whatever, you get to know it pretty well.
Hmm.
So yeah. Um, but yeah, the language of the King James Bible, I tend to come back to more.
Yeah, it's much more easy to memorize, believe it or not. The because it's much more musical.
Yeah, like I'll
So
just read the new one, and it's like nothing, just something in the wind, and it's in the like new version. I'm like, yeah. Then I hear
yeah,
like the King James version. I'm like, ooh, yeah, give me more of that.
like like in John the Baptist in a newer version. I don't know which one it is, but it says someone is shouting in the desert, "Get the road ready." It's kind of okay. The King James Bible in that same spot says, "The voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare ye the way." And it's like, whoa, that sounds so much better.
That sounds
you know,
cooler. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. It's not like, hey guys, back to work. Your break's over. Like it's poetry.
Yeah, no, you're just like, yeah, exactly. You're just kind of like, oh, like you'll read like and I don't mind the like newer Bibles, like they're very helpful for people who might not have the cadence. Well, I don't want to say not smart enough because that would sound rude, but I think anyone could understand the King James Bible if you read through it. But
Yeah, I do too.
well, the newer ones are easier to understand. I get how that's useful for like, at least like modern church and whatever.
The one thing that I like doing is to perform it in front of an audience. So I've done that before. Like I perform like a passage as a stage play,
Uh
like a
huh.
sort of a narration, but I'm not reading it. I'm just saying it. And people always afterwards come up and be like, "Oh my gosh, I could understand every word. I'm going to get that version. What version was that? Could you please tell me?" And I'll be like, "I hate to disappoint you, but that's the old King James Bible." And they're like, "No way!" I think people they're told they're too stupid to understand it. Like, "Oh, this one I guarantee is whatever, whatever." And that's just not the case. It's if you read English and you pay attention and you learn some new words, it's like, oh, you'll be okay.
There are thousand and these in there, but aside from that, you'll be fine.
Well, I mean, that actually makes it more accurate. And the reason is
I mean, I don't know if they spoke like that in ancient Judea, but possible.
well, they didn't say thee and thou, whatever the word was, but like the t's or the if it starts with a t, thee, thou, thine, those are singular. That's me to Britain, Jake to Britain.
Hmm.
If it's with a y, ye, your, that's to y'all, right? So when you say thee, thine, and your, and ye. Oh, that's different. That's singular and plural. So that actually helps you with like who is he talking to? Is that to him or is it to this group? And that the new Bibles put just like you. Well, a lot of times that'll mess up when he's talking to a single person or a group. And like when Jesus is talking to like the Pharisees or a certain person, that's obscured if everything is exactly the same. So the thee and the thou, as old as it is an indicator that helps you understand.
Yeah, I guess I'll put it this way, like when the moments I think maybe I'm not as much of a language nut, I'll read something like Shakespeare or the King James Bible, and I'll just be like, yeah.
exactly. It just lands on the ear so beautifully.
So I'm guessing all your Bible readings are King James version.
Yeah, for one, if I read the NIV and it were to, I mean, I could probably do it and get away with it right now, but if it ever got a lot of views, Zondervan could come to me and to say, "Hey, take that down. That is our copyright." Well, nobody can do that with the King James. It's open domain, like it's cool. So that's one less headache to worry about. Plus, it just sounds better.
Yeah, I think it sounds better. I mean, like because I'm always bad at memorizing. Or well, I'm usually bad at memorizing things. It's a fleeting in the wind. It's King Solomon. I think it's either Ecclesiastes or Song of Solomon. I don't remember. But he's basically it was what you said earlier. There are no new things under the sun. Or
Yeah,
actually, what
yeah.
he says is,
Ecclesiastes. Yeah.
or I think what he says is, I have done all these things, and yet it was nothing.
Hmm.
Fleeting in the wind. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's way more evocative than just like, I was just kind of like,
Yeah.
I'll read like the newer Bible, and it almost just kind of sounds like he's just annoyed. He's like, I was just nothing.
Yeah. Uh, and I think
God, God
even
is.
someone who's like, oh, I'm an atheist, or I'm maybe another religion or whatever, and they're like, I'm not a Bible fan. That's fine. I think reading the King James Bible is good, if for nothing else. It helps you understand some of the idioms and some of the thought processes of Western, culture. And so, like, a new Bible might say, "I'm better than you." The In Isaiah, in the King James Bible, it says, "I am holier than thou." We still say that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
There's a lot of those that we still retain as expressions and idioms in English, even modern English.
Yeah. Haven't you done William Blake? So I like William Blake a lot.
Yeah, I've
Um,
done the tiger, the lamb,
oh yeah, you've done the
and
Tiger. That's right. I saw your
maybe
Tiger one.
the poison tree. I've at least thought about doing the poison tree. I don't know if I've done it yet.
But yeah, I enjoy him a lot because well, I like those people you can't necessarily put into a box. You're just kind of like,
Yeah,
he's kind of this weird, I don't know what he was on, but I want to know, or
yeah,
he
I
might be
agree.
mentally ill as well. Who knows? But I don't want to just. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm dismissing William Blake. I think he's a genius in a lot of ways.
I think a lot of geniuses are. Some of their stuff is off-putting. Where it's like, this is amazing. Oh, I don't know
Yeah, like
about
you see like some of his paintings, like his like biblical paintings, you're just like, that's kind of creepy.
that.
Which yeah, I don't know if you know of like Red Dragon, The Silence of the Lambs, but that's actually where I discovered William Blake.
Okay, okay.
Because the
I've never watched those movies, but I know what you're talking about.
because the serial killer in Red Dragon is obsessed with the Red Dragon painting of William
Interesting.
Blake.
Okay.
Um and I saw it, I'm like, ooh, that's really weird, strange, you know. Um, but yeah, God, you've done so much stuff, man. I mean, oh, you did Shel Silverstein. Wow, that's
Yeah. Uh,
that's
Sick. That's a fun one.
that. It's funny. I remember I read this is probably I grew up reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid when I was younger,
Yes.
which are like these, you have kids. I'm sure they've read them, or if
Right.
maybe you've seen them around. I don't know, but I always think of when Greg is describing, like, oh man, my brother gets to be read this stuff. I was read Shel Silverstein when I was a kid, and it's like, oh, you think he looks friendly, but he kind of looks like this pie, and it creeps him out. And I just and like his appearance, he was like this bald guy.
Oh yeah, and that's another dirt bag in real life, from what I can tell. Like
Yeah,
he was always like hanging out at the Playboy Mansion and grabbing people on the butt. I mean, like, he was not a good dude. But it doesn't show up in his work, so good deal.
I also like the Giving Tree because I'm like, oh man,
Yeah,
like
I mean
man, no.
that's like a sad story, but also a good. I mean, it's good. It sort of makes you think, and it makes you want to do better.
Exactly. it's kind of like Dickens, you know. I'll put it down and be like, you know what, I want to be a better person. Or like Ray Bradbury, if you ever read Ray Bradbury.
I don't think I have actually. I know who you're talking about, but I don't think I've ever recorded anything.
Maybe not. I mean, he's a ridiculously prolific short story writer, though.
Yeah,
His, I mean, he also wrote, Fahrenheit 451 and stuff like that.
right.
Also, I mean, I don't mean to be like, hey, you should check these guys out, but hey, you
Well, I
should
mean,
read these guys.
I always do, whether you mean it that way or not. I'll be like, oh, you know what? I need to check.
But
Always trying to
if you
find my
want
next good
somebody
book.
to, if you want somebody to like read out loud, Bradbury can do that for you.
Mm.
So you did Great Expectations. I haven't actually read that one yet. I want to though. I have
Well,
a friend.
I didn't read. I didn't do the whole audiobook. I
Oh
think I
no,
did
you
one.
just did like
I
a
did
little
one little
snippet
scene.
of redneck Charles Dickens.
Right. It's like southern. Was it Magwitch and uh, Southern Pip when Pip was like when they meet in the sort of the misty moor in the graveyard when they first meet.
Mm-hmm.
That was a. I think I did that scene or something between the two of them.
Um, but yeah, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, I find when you do the kind of redneck, Dickens or Pride and Prejudice or Shakespeare or whatever you do in the redneck segment of your channel, but I find that kind of illustrates the timelessness of those stories. That
Right.
even if it's like I don't mean this as like a insult, but like if it is just a bunch of like if the cast is a bunch of hicks, you can still work.
Yeah. I think any good writing, uh, it'll work well with a regional accent if the writing's good. And perfect example of that is Andrew Scott in his Irish Hamlet. Have you ever
Oh
seen
yeah,
that on YouTube? You know,
I
it's like it's not British. I mean, that's like an Irish Hamlet, and it's amazing.
that's hilarious. You bring that up in um my previous podcast. I was talking to a fellow Shakespeare enthusiast, and he mentioned he's like, you want to watch like if you want a like good intro to Shakespeare, Andrew Scott's Hamlet. He is
Hmm.
fantastic in that.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't. I think at least to American ears, it doesn't sound uppity like high and mighty. It sounds like oh, that kind of sounds like a working class guy like me, kind of a thing. And that
And that's kind of
Irish,
what Shakespeare was, like
right? Oh,
that
he
time that
definitely
was the
was.
work that was just like the like he was writing the stuff anybody could like listen to.
Right,
Ooh,
right. And it sounds too, to my little Southern American ears, when it's Anthony Hopkins, if it's the first time hearing it, it's like, oh, he's too smart. I'm not going to be able to understand this. Whereas like Andrew Scott, it's like, okay, yeah, I see what you're going through, Hamlet.
I'll have to. I actually read a comic adaptation of Hamlet, or I was going through my local bookstore and I found it. I'm like, ooh, and sadly it was in modern English, so I was like, oh, drat, But I mean, it wasn't bad, but it was just kind of like again, it was kind of like what you were saying about the King James
Yeah,
version and like just the differences. You're just like, oh, it just feels like they're talking to each other. It's not
right.
like,
I mean, you can still get something
and I
out
mean,
of it, obviously,
to
but
be fair, they are just talking to each other, but
yeah, but there's in the like Shakespeare's writing, there's just a lot of stuff that you're going to miss out on if you put it all into the vernacular of modern vernacular.
you've even done like letters from uh did William Travis of the Alamo fame. I was obsessed with the Alamo as a kid.
Yeah, yeah, did his proclamation letter or his I think his what was it? His kind of his call for help. Like, hey, here's where we'll be. If you can make it, it'd be nice. But here's where we're going to die if you don't show up. We're not giving it up though. Like it was a very um, triumphant sort of very militant letter.
It's kind of interesting about William Travis. Like we don't really know that much about him. Like if you read about the history, like it's kind of this mysterious figure. Or well, if like I don't know if you like I don't know if you're like into history at all, but
I am a lot actually.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, you read all this old literature, so I guess I should have gathered that, but it is what it
There's a lecture series on the Old West, on the great courses, that's a great, um, thing, and it's by a British guy, and he actually went into some depth about all the characters at the Alamo, Travis being one of them. A lot of those people were sort of Southerners that had come west, and of course, this was pre-Civil War by almost 20 years at the Alamo, but um, yeah, definitely some fascinating characters.
Yeah, I'm surprised in our like outrage culture, like they haven't brought up yet that like I hope I'm not jinxing this, but like they haven't brought up yet that much of the conflict in the Texan Revolution was that um the white people who were coming into Mexico were all mad that they couldn't have their slaves. That was one of the big like reasons they were fighting.
Right. And they're trying to take it from the Mexicans and from the Comanches and from the out in the western part, from the Apaches. And they were
Yeah,
just, there's a lot of
there's a lot of head shaking in our history. I
yeah,
know.
and it shouldn't. I don't think it should be sort of swept under the rug or not talked about. It's like, oh,
Well,
let's talk
no,
about it.
it's just kind of
And
I
it's
just kind of think that's funny because like we've
no
seen
idea.
nowadays that like I remember even when I was a kid and they like had statues of like Confederate generals. I'm like, why? Like, didn't they like? Aren't they like the enemy?
Where are you from, Britton?
I'm from Oklahoma, so
Okay, okay. What part?
I'm in
Like what?
Oklahoma. I'm in Oklahoma City,
Okay, okay.
so yeah.
I've actually got my sister and brother-in-law are in Guthrie.
Oh,
Um, they they're I was actually out there not too long ago. He is a Marine recruiter, so he's on recruiting duty, and sort of the Marine Corps recruiting command for that area is based out of Oklahoma City.
was it the one? Was it the one who read O. Henry with you?
No, that was my actual brother, who's also Marine, by the way, or was. But he was that's my actual brother. I'm talking
Oh,
about my
oh,
brother-in-law.
brother-in-law. My bad.
Yeah, yeah.
My bad. My bad. I misunderstood you there.
So I went to the 45th Infantry Museum while I was there.
Oh
Have you
yeah,
been
yeah,
to
yeah.
that?
I've been there.
Isn't that great? I loved that. That was fun.
Yeah, my grandfather took me there. My
Nice.
when I was younger, because like I had a real interest in like military stuff.
Hmm.
Now I probably wouldn't do good if I were in the military, but I like reading about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's very interesting whether or not you want to have part of it.
So
It's
you
just
were
like,
actually in the military, so
mhm,
I'm sure
yeah,
you have some experiences.
yeah.
So like, did you actually fight, or were you just kind of like chilling out and like in like
Well,
Germany or something?
officers don't fight.
Oh,
Remember,
okay.
remember what? No, they do sometimes. But if an officer is fighting, you're usually in a situation that is not ideal.
Oh, okay.
uh,
Like a
usually,
Die Hard situation.
well, it just depends. Like, let's say D-Day.
Oh yeah.
Um, all the officers were on shore, so that they're just as much a part of it. In an ideal operation, and just like Dick Winters in Band of Brothers, remember there was this one engagement where he jumps up on this dike and just starts blasting them, and then his guys come over the hill and they just
Oh
whack.
yeah, yeah, yeah. When he throws the smoke, yeah, I know what you're
Right.
talking about.
That was the last time he fired his rifle, even though he was in country fighting. You know what I'm saying? It just
Yeah.
so no, I did not. I wasn't shooting guys and that kind of thing, but I was in
Well,
Iraq.
I didn't want to ask if you shot anybody because, like, I know people don't like talking about that.
Well, I mean, some people don't mind it, and
Like,
I
I've
will say I know a lot of people that are very bothered. Like, it bothers them mentally, some of the things that we saw over there, and that's the case with me. But also, I didn't do it.
oh,
You know
okay.
what I mean?
Well,
Like,
I wasn't gonna ask if you shot anybody. I was gonna ask like, so were you like one of the like were you in like the action or did you just kind of like go to Germany or something and you lived like hang out over there?
well, we went to northern Iraq it's called Sinjar,
Hmm.
but it was pretty quiet while we were over there.
Must
So
been desolate over there.
it was very desolate in this part. Very desolate, like not a shrub for as far as you could see. But when we first went up there, I was in Tikrit. I was at a place called Camp Spiker, or um, named after a pilot, I think. Anyway, it was a big base, and on the one of those soccer fields is where uh, Saddam Uday and Hussein, the Iraqi national team, came back from a match where they did not do well, and they like came out to the soccer field and shot them at like center field of the soccer field that we
Oh
played on.
wow,
Um,
that must have been creepy.
it was. It was kind of like, man, and that sounds like something you would hear in ancient history, like, oh, there's this Persian king one time that yada yada yada, and this was like, no, this was 10 years ago. Um, yeah, so we had some interesting experiences, but we ended up in northern Iraq, and we were screening the Syrian border because
Mm.
what happens is when someone wants to infiltrate a country, they'll find a border that is like porous, that is not guarded, and they'll start sending people across. And what they'll do is they'll link up. They'll come through, disguised as a shepherd. Maybe there's 1,000 sheep around them, and they'll be walking in. Well, then once they get in the country, they'll get to a city and sort of link up. So we were looking for mercenaries infiltrating through the northern border. And but we were not in like a Black Hawk Down situation.
That's
You know,
good.
so it was a different. It was like actual scouting. I was in a scout unit, and we were actually sitting on the hill with binoculars. Like
That must have.
scout.
I mean, that must have been very engaging. I imagine.
I mean, it was interesting, but it's not. When people hear the war in Iraq, what we were doing will not pop into their mind most likely if they didn't serve, because you don't see that on the TV. A guy like sitting on a hill with binoculars. You see like people kicking the door in and stuff. We did some of that, but it was like to check stuff. It wasn't it wasn't constant. It was just a few
Didn't
times.
like. Hopefully you weren't like kicking in doors and people were like ah. Or,
Well, we checked a few villages and stuff
oh,
where we had heard that these guys were at, but we didn't commit atrocities or anything.
that's good.
Besides, except no, nobody got hurt, but we did one time. We the the commander on the ground wanted to sort of flex our military muscles,
Oh
so he
god.
rode he
It's
rode
never a
down
great.
through Main Street.
That stories
We-
that start like that usually end well.
Well, thank God this one ended. It ended well. So we drove down through Main Street. The antennas are like 30 feet tall on these things, and we took down the infrastructure of the town because it just took out all the like the little wires that they had rigged up from their generators, knocked out the power in this little tiny village. Anyway, the chief got mad at us, understandably. He was like, kind of, I didn't know you guys existed, and now I hate you. And that's generally how that goes. But some cooler heads prevailed and said, we need to go back and fix what we messed up. Like you have to. You have to do that. And so the commander was like, oh, you're right. So we went back out there and actually left the town better than we found it. So we
That's good.
we used heavier gauge wire,
That
and
ended as well as it could have.
it ended as well as it could have. It should not have happened, but it ended well, and no one got hurt, thankfully. So either ours or theirs.
So like, was your whole family in the military? Because
No, I've got I had a grandfather that was in the military. I have a brother currently in the Army, and I had a brother in the Marines.
how many siblings
But
do you have?
12.
Oh my god. Sorry, but oh my gosh.
Well, that's the general response. That's
12.
not unwarranted.
Oh man, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he had like, so your parents are like kind of older, I'm guessing.
Well, my dad passed away. My mom is she's in her 60s. So
Oh, sorry about that. Then
yeah.
12 kids though. Like,
Well, 13. I have 12 siblings.
oh, oh.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you were talking about like your siblings. You're like, oh my gosh, like it's a lot.
But like in college, or, your first day of class, when there's like, okay, two truths and a lie, I would usually say I'm one of 13. And that was always like, aha, you're not one of 13. You must have climbed Mount Everest.
They find that more believable than having 13 siblings. I'm like, did your parents like time travel from the 1800s? Because
Nope,
they were blessed. I'll put it
they
that way.
were. They were blessed. We're blessed.
Very blessed. I've also seen stuff with your daughter. I watched one of yours the other day. Your daughter was doing Cruella from
Oh yeah,
Underwater Televisions.
yeah. So we'll take a Disney snippet and then she'll voice the dub over with her voice. So she's like, "The police are coming everywhere."
Yeah, I know. I was kind of like, does she even know what she's talking about in this?
Oh, those are her favorite movies. So she's you know um, one of my favorites was with where she does George C. Scott's voice in the Rescuers Down Under.
Oh yeah, when he plays the poacher guy.
Yeah, yeah. Forget his name. Yeah, that guy,
Great
Joanna
actor.
the Lizard.
I actually rewatched the Christmas Carol that he was Scrooge, and
Oh yeah,
way better, way better than a TV movie usually is. So yeah, because you then think of like, or you think of like, I don't know if you know what like those Hallmark movies.
yeah.
Like, oh, there are good TV movies out there. Okay. Oh, you have done The Raven. Okay.
Yep, I've done the Raven.
I feel you might have street cred if that would affect your street cred if you hadn't done The
I
Raven.
think it would. Yeah, I believe you're exactly right.
um, I think you didn't you do Tennyson as well. Have you done Ulysses?
Yes, I've done Ulysses. I've done Crossing the Bar. I've done I've done several. I've done several of Tennyson's.
Was he a manie as well, or did he seem like a cool guy?
I think he was a cool guy. I think he was a family man. I think he was kind of I know the Queen Victoria really liked him. He was the poet laureate of
Well, of course, he was a
in
lord, so I bet that helped
right.
him out a lot.
And apparently he was kind of socially awkward, but people didn't know it because he's like they're being awkward around him because he's so famous, but he was awkward back. Anyway,
That
apparently he
worked
was
out
real
well
interesting
then.
guy. Yeah, so an amazing writer and storyteller. Lady of Shalott. I've done Lady of Shalott as well, which is by Tennyson. That's probably my favorite of his.
Well, I just saw your Charge of the Light, the
Oh
Light
yeah, in Charge of
Brigade
the Light
one.
Brigade.
Which I like Ulysses a lot. I
Me
read
too.
it with a teacher of mine who became a friend of mine, and yeah, really enjoy that one a lot.
I think the older I get, the more I like Ulysses.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. Um, oh, you did Occurrence at I think Ambrose Bierce is
Yep. Yep.
underrated.
Big time. And he was a talk about veterans that have seen action. He was at Shiloh,
Ooh,
and I mean,
yeah.
he saw some pretty
Also,
awful stuff.
apparently mean. Like my God.
I mean, I think sure he must have had PTSD or something. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, no, I'm not. I
he
don't
was
want to
in a
sound like
lot of
I don't know if he was a bad guy, but he was called Bitter Bierce by his contemporaries.
right. I mean, he saw some stuff, and apparently he never got over it.
Yeah, no, they didn't know what PTSD was back in that time. They were like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm kind of surprised people didn't know what PTSD was till recently, because it's like you would think like you see a bunch of really messed up stuff that would affect you in some way."
Well, I mean, I think people knew what it was. I think they treated it differently, though. It
Yeah,
was
I'll
like
give you that.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, because you read stuff written by Roman centurions and things, and they're talking about, man, some of these kids don't want to thrust, man. You gotta come on, you gotta, and then they're all scared. Anyway, it's pretty interesting reading stuff through history. It's
Speaking
always,
of George C. Scott, did you see? Did you ever see Patton? This might sound silly,
yeah,
but
yeah,
you've seen Patton, I hope.
hmm
There's that scene where he like smacks the poor kid who's
hmm
shell shocked,
right,
which also got him in trouble. Poor guy, or I don't want
right,
to say poor guy. I don't know if slapping traumatized people is a nice thing to do. It's not.
yeah. I mean, I've never. There's a book called Anatomy of Courage, by a guy named Lord Moran, who is a British medical doctor in World War One, and he talks about PTSD. And they didn't call it that even in World War One, but it's talking about courage in the face of adversity and what it looks like in all these case studies. It's fascinating.
Oh, might have to pick that up.
And my brother, who's in like special operations, he actually read it and was like, "That's so good." He took it to his, because in the unit, some of the upper echelon units, they kind of have mandatory shrink visits. You got to talk to do
Hmm.
therapy
I
a lot.
imagine, yeah.
Yeah, and so he took it to his you know um, doctor and was like, "Hey, you should read this." And so the doctor's reading it. I was like, "Oh, this is amazing. I haven't read this." It's really good and very practical to today or any other time.
Like I'm kind of just scrolling through your channel. Redneck Satan tempting Jesus in the wilderness.
Yeah, that's from, I think it's from Matthew 4. When
Well, yeah,
Jesus
yeah, I know the
is out
story.
there. Well, it's a couple different ones. That one is from Matthew 4.
Oh, okay.
There's a couple different renditions of it. I think that one's the Matthew one.
The one about the bread and jump
Hmm.
off. Then he's
Yeah,
like,
I think Matthew
he
and
just
Luke
gives
talk
up. He's
about
like, hey, come to my side, and he's like, no.
it. Yeah, not doing it.
Oh man. King James, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, man.
um. Oh, he did "If" by Rudyard Kipling. I haven't read a lot of Kipling, but I mean I know the Jungle Book because the animated movie, and then the remake they did a few years ago, which I actually liked a lot.
I did too. I thought Idris Elba as Shere Khan was one of the great villain.
That
Uh,
was yeah, that was really good.
how it's like when they present the villain for the first time, he's getting off a helicopter or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. When he comes over that rock and the sun is in your eyes, and so you sort of see his silhouette. Oh, that's good. That was a good entrance.
Yeah, like yeah, he's almost like a Western villain. He's just
Yeah.
like he can kind of I really like those shots when like they like I'm not a cinematographer, unfortunately. Maybe you can
But
ask your brother about this
yeah.
and see if he has any insights. But um, there's those shots where like it's blurred, but you can see them walking through it's almost like
Mhm.
a mirage.
Yeah.
I really like those kind of shots in movies.
Yeah. It really helps like build the energy.
Ooh. um, yeah. Have you read like Sylvia Plath? Because
Yeah, the I think the Winter Ship, I think I've done.
like I read this book called My Dark Vanessa recently, um, which title is from Pale Fire from Vladimir Nabokov or Nabokov is how you pronounce. He was Russian. um, a bunch of poetry references in that one.
Hmm.
So, yeah, like are there people you would like to cover in the future, like that you haven't covered yet, and you were like, man, or is there like, or have you like, or is there like more stuff from people you already have covered that you would like to cover in the near future?
Well, yeah. One William Faulkner. He's a Mississippi author, and I would
I've
like to
only
do
read
some
A Rose for
short stories.
Emily from him.
Okay.
I'm a little afraid of reading his of his actual novels because you know maybe I'll try like
Well, I
one
mean, it's one of
novels or
those
something.
things that might take some getting used to. It's just a different style of writing. He's kind of wordy.
I
He's like a
tried Light
southern
in August,
character.
but like I wasn't. I don't know if I was ready yet. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's how it is with me. Sometimes I'll read. I think I picked up Moby Dick a number of
Oh god.
times, and then the fourth time I was ready for it, and I love it. Now it's one of my. I mean, it's my favorite book probably.
I I actually need to reread Moby Dick to see if my opinion changes because like I remember I read it when I was younger and I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. Then I read it when I was in high school and I was kind of like, what? Because I'm like, what?
Yeah, I
Um,
I read it. The chapters are very short. You can get through them in most of them in 5-10 minutes. And so I said, I'm not gonna like sit here and try to bog down. I'm gonna read one chapter a day. Well, then I found myself like, oh, that's really good. I'm gonna read the next chapter, and I got through it this past year, and I really loved it.
yeah, I mean, Oh, there's your rhyme of the ancient mare. I knew you did it. I just couldn't find it.
Yeah, I like that one.
I,
And
I
also,
I do like that one a lot as well. Though I think it's kind of weird. He just shoots the albatross for no reason. It's just kind of like
well, there's a lot of the time our thoughtless actions bring on a lot of heartache.
that's true. But going back to the question, I'm sorry I didn't mean to interrupt the train of thought there. But are there people you would like to cover in the near future, or people you would aside from Faulkner, or
Yeah, I mean, really, it would be like
people you'd like to do more of?
I mean, I love Jane Austen. I love her.
I
If
can
I were,
tell you're doing a redneck rendition of
yeah, I
her
mean,
most
so I'll
famous
probably do
work.
some more of hers, like actual stories. Um, I'm doing Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Also, I've done one chapter, and I'll be like continuing to read through that.
I always get those
Um,
mixed up. I always think Jane Eyre was by Jane Austen. I'm like, what? No, it's not. It's Bronte.
Wrong Jane. The more poetry too. I need to do more poetry from Tennyson probably because I haven't done a whole lot of his. Probably do some more Poe short stories. I've probably done a lot of the well-known ones, but I'd like to do some of his not so well-known ones. Like I got this uh, collected tales and poems of Edgar Allan Poe a while back, and it's just got a lot of stories that I hadn't read before. So probably, some of that. Um, some more John Keats.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
just
Keats is when I think him, I always think of I'm guessing you've seen Dead Poet Society because I mean I love that film, but the main character Robin Williams' character, I think his name is John Keating.
hmm
I don't know if that was an actual poet's name or if that was a reference to Keats. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe
right.
both, but but I always think of that.
Yeah. The
I think that was one of the William or the Stephen Fry you were talking about the other day.
right. He read Ode to a Nightingale by John Keats. Another great rendition of that is by Benedict Cumberbatch. You can find on YouTube. Uh, Amazing rendition.
I do like Benedict Cumberbatch. He was a good Sherlock, even though the writing on that show kind of fell off. I won't
Mm.
get into that.
Yeah, I only saw the first season, I think, maybe 2 seasons, but I really enjoyed what I saw of it.
Oh yeah, those first couple are well, there's only like four, so like the first two are really good. So, or at least I like them a lot.
Yeah,
Um, oh yeah, I mean there's yeah, have you covered like John Milton or like T.S.
yeah, I've
Eliot?
done several from John Milton. I've never done anything super long like Paradise Lost or
Well,
anything,
yeah, no, that's a bit of a thick one. I wouldn't have expected you to cover that.
but I've done like On Time. I've done I've done a good some of John Milton anyway. Trying to see.
Hmm.
I mean, Paradise Lost is one that I'd probably like to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great lines in that one.
And a lot of the times, I'll do live readings on my YouTube at night.
Yeah,
So a lot of
I've
so
seen some of them. Yeah.
yeah, so a lot of these I'll have done. Let's say I'll go John Milton, and I'll just read 4 or 5 in a row, so it won't come up as in a title if you search it, but I'd have done them. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I do enjoy doing that kind of thing. But yeah, John Milton, great writer.
Yeah, like there's a couple I like. Like I mean, again, I'm not admittedly I'm not again I'm not a big poetry reader, but again I like hearing them because
hmm
again I think it's like I said earlier, I think there's a that's why I like some spoken word, even though there's a lot of I think the art of spoken word is kind of become sort of a punchline, which I don't think is which I think is kind of sad because I think spoken word poetry can really illustrate why poetry is good. At least I
Yeah.
think so. There's this guy named Shane. I can never pronounce his last name. Koigzan, I think is how it's pronounced from um, um, Canada. Phenomenal. Um, though it's his own stuff, so I guess that makes sense. But yeah, I like hearing poetry be read aloud, so that's why I like your
Yeah,
channel.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, poetry is but I think when you hear it, it's kind of like when a friend of mine was on. Actually, the guy I had on here last time made this post talking about how you should, like we were talking about earlier, you should watch Shakespeare instead of just read
Hmm.
him because
Yeah,
you'll
yeah,
tend to
for sure.
appreciate it more. I think it's the same thing with poetry. Like you don't just read. Like I mean, you don't have to read. Like maybe just listen. Like if you don't like reading it, or if you don't necessarily tend to read, listen to it. Maybe it'll affect you there. That's
Yeah,
how it worked for me anyway. I don't know.
I agree.
There's some I like. I like T.S. Eliot a lot.
That's somebody that I want to get more into. I heard Jeremy Irons do a lecture on why, you should like T.S. Eliot. And I was like, okay, I've never really been into him, but I'm gonna take another look at the like four
Um,
quartets and stuff. And
Robert Browning. I actually recently listened to Child Roland to the Dark Tower Came, which was a lot of fun. I really like that one because
hmm,
it's really bizarre. He's
okay.
really weird. Um, yeah, I like Robert Browning a lot. So yeah. I also have a friend named Liam who does like these poetry readings on his channel, which is fun.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but yeah, no, but yeah, I like that you but like I guess, or well, I don't know if you already. I didn't hear if you had an answer for it, but are there other authors you would like to do more of in the future that you really appreciate?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean T.S.
oh yeah,
Eliot.
no, you said, oh yeah, no, you said Jane Austen.
Yeah, Jane Austen. I would say Tennyson, O. Henry, Mark Twain, more short stories. There's
Mm-hmm.
some good ones out there. Like there's a lot of stuff to stay busy, till there's a lot of good stuff out there, and I just kind of making it accessible to people. Um, I like the thought of that. I think there's a lot of great writing sort of sitting in the library and nobody's paying it attention anymore. And I like to try to, bring it out in the open and blow the dust off of it and say, hey, this is really cool.
Um, I remember reading one Mark Twain short story in high school. I don't remember because like they would give us like in class they would have. I'm sure they had those when you were in school, but there were these like textbooks,
Hmm.
and I was such a nerd. I would just kind of skim through them and like just find stuff to read, because I just like doing that for whatever reason. I don't remember which one. Either it was the Leaping Frog one or it was Puddinhead Wilson. I don't remember.
Yeah, yeah. The celebrated jumping frog of Calaveras County. That was his first one,
Yeah,
sort of
that
made
one.
him famous as a writer.
Yeah, that one. Also, I guess Mark Twain was the first stand-up comedian of sorts
Yeah,
because apparently he would do these lectures, which were basically what we would know as stand-up routines now.
right. Exactly.
Um, though, yeah, they even have the award Mark Twain Award for Humor, which
Right.
I think is neat.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, it's neat stuff. Um, you've also done the Shakespeare sonnets.
Yeah. I haven't done all of them, but I've done a good many, and I need to do the rest of them just to have them up.
Have you heard I forget which one it is, but have you heard Judy Dench do one of the
Hmm.
sonnets?
Yeah, I think she did
Fantastic.
Sonnet 29. I've seen going around. I think she did on Graham Norton, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's the one I'm talking about. It was fantastic.
Yep.
Also, I think it was in the James Bond movie, but she quoted
Okay.
Ulysses in that
Okay.
one, which I also really liked.
Patterson Joseph does Sonnet 29 as well.
Ooh, I gotta
That's on YouTube. You gotta check that out. His is probably my favorite rendition of that.
yeah, I'll have to check that out then because I like Patterson Joseph.
Yeah.
I recently I don't know if you've seen the trailers for the new Wonka film, but I saw that like
Yeah,
he's
I
in
have.
it, and I'm like, "Ooh, there's
Oh, is he?
Patterson Joseph."
Okay. I don't know. I don't think I noticed that.
um,
I definitely want to see it at least once, just see. I like that kind of movie.
Yeah, no, it's fun. Or well, I haven't seen it, but I saw the trailer. And I'm like, oh, this looks quaint. Or
Hmm.
well, is that the right word?
Yeah, sure. Like,
Uh,
I'm willing to, well, because some trailers you're like, no. Whereas this one, I'm like, yeah, yeah, I'll see it at least once. I might not like it, I might not see it the second time, but I'll see it once.
oh oh yeah, oh you've done Invictus. I enjoy that one a lot too.
Yeah, yeah,
I enjoyed Morgan Freeman's reading of it.
it's a good
Um,
one.
though I think that's the only one I've read from that guy.
He's got what else? Or no, not Jordan. Stephen. No, no, no. I'm thinking of Coleridge, and there's a couple other ones. But William Ernest Henley. I want to say there's one more I've done from him, but yeah, yeah, it wouldn't have been many.
um, oh, we got Redneck Jesus talking with
Redneck Jesus.
Nicodemus. That's good. I like that.
Yeah. There's one where I narrate it as one character, and then Nicodemus is like a British guy, and Jesus is a Southerner. So it's kind of fun. Mm.
You're like, what?
Yeah.
Just like you.
Yeah. Rabbi, we know that thou art a teacher come from God. He's like, well, you must be born again.
That's good. Um, I like that. That's funny. Um, now oh wow. So yeah, you've done the famous. Have you done a Mask of Red Death from Poe?
I have.
Okay. So you've really done the like well-known ones.
I've done Telltale Heart,
Mm.
Mask of the Red Death, Hop Frog.
Mm-hmm.
I've done.
Yeah, Hop
Um,
Frog's bizarre. Then again,
I
it's
like
worth.
it. It's a delicious tale of
Oh
revenge,
yeah.
and by the time the
He
king gets
really
it,
liked the
you're ready. You're
macabre.
ready to receive. It's like yes, which you don't get that feeling very much in a Poe writing. Usually, you feel disgusted or some other emotion, but like a feeling of yes is very rare, and I like that about Hop Frog. The Pit and the Pendulum. I've done that one. A couple more.
Have you done have you done William Wilson?
No, haven't done that one.
That's a good one. Then again, I like doppelganger stuff.
Okay.
I like copy stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Um,
this one movie I heard of. I didn't see it. But Jesse Eisenberg plays like copies of himself. I forget what it's
Interesting.
called.
So
But
like the Prince and the Pauper by Mark Twain. That's a classic
oh yeah,
in
yeah,
that
that's
genre. Yeah.
it's his
I haven't done that one, but
it's
that's
basically his or as I like to call it, his Dickens riff.
the
I would be flabbergasted if Twain was not in any way inspired by Dickens.
he would I would say he would have to have been because Dickens was, you know, very well known back then as Mark Twain was coming up. And even if you didn't like him, I think you have to at least have read him. He would have. I mean, how do you know if you don't like him unless you looked at his stuff?
I don't know. I mean, Prince and the Pauper feels a lot like something Dickens would have written. At least to me, it did when I
Yeah,
read it
yeah.
when I was
It
younger.
doesn't feel Twainish at all. But he's a great
I like how, like when they switch him out, they think he's gone crazy.
right, and that is a reasonable response.
Yeah.
You know,
He's like, oh, but I'm not your son. I'm a prince. I'm a prince. It's like, oh, I'm like what? And the dad's just straight out of a Dickens book. Like, he's gone mad.
sorry, uh, sorry, my phone's blowing up.
Redneck King Lear. Oh.
Yeah, yeah, I think that one was from when he's. Sorry, my phone keeps blasting. Um, yeah, that was from when he's like walking in the storm, out in the storm, yelling at the storm.
Yeah. Oh, he did it to build a fire from Jack London.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and To Build a Fire and Love of Life so far. I'm kind of plotting my third one. I really like Jack London.
Yeah, he's interesting. Another guy where he kind of lived the life he wrote about,
Yeah,
kind of like Poe or
yeah, Hemingway or Melville.
yeah, or well, I don't. Have you read any Joseph Conrad?
No, I haven't done any of his yet.
Well, I've only read Heart of Darkness from him, but that was autobiographical story if I remember right. So,
Okay.
also very good. Um, but yeah, no, it's a lot of there's a lot of great stuff out there. I want to like I haven't read like I want to read more of like Dickens' work at some point because I haven't read Great Expectations, believe it or not. I haven't read like David Copperfield. I want to. And then there's some like kind of like Bleak House. I'm like, I wonder if he went too long on those. Well, I guess I'll see when I get there.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I haven't read Bleak House either. I own it. I don't haven't read it yet.
Are there any like readings you? Are there any like readings of novels you want to like other like redneck readings like you doing with Pride and Prejudice right now? Well, aside from Jane Eyre.
Well, I've had several requests for Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court by Mark Twain, and I love that idea, so I might do that.
Ooh,
Also,
I haven't
probably
actually read that one.
oh, I really like that one. I think that's a great story. Um, Also, Treasure Island by
Ooh,
Robert Louis
yeah,
Stevenson.
it's a good
That's
one.
one of my favorite sort of. I know it's kind of a kid's book, but I just love it.
I like Jekyll and Hyde from him a lot, but
Okay,
um, that would be that would be a fun one
that would
to
be.
see you
That would
do.
be. Yeah,
I've seen a couple of readings of that one, but or like I don't know,
yeah. I
yeah,
have
redneck Jekyll and Hyde. That would be fun to watch.
that's a good idea. Speaking of Gothic, like Southern Gothic, I did do the Cask of Amontillado in Southern. So like, okay, this is at Mardi Gras in New Orleans, and they're under
Oh,
the
that's
city.
cool. I
That's
gotta see
that's what I
that
might
then.
sound like. So that's a normally Poe. I just sort of do a down the line accent, but for Cask of Amontillado, I did it in Southern with sort of
Had
that
some
in
fun with
mind.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's one of those. I'm like, why are you following that guy down? Like, he doesn't even like you.
Well, when you start boozing, you do a lot of things you wouldn't normally do.
That's true. That's true. That's true. I remember. Um, or does he not even know that he doesn't like him? Like, I don't remember.
Well, I don't remember. It's kind of like they have one of those friendships or acquaintances where you sort of, you're always cutting each other down. It's almost like neighbors, like in the movies where there's a neighbor that's
Neighbor.
whatever. So it's sort of like they know each other, but they're not best friends, but they know each other really well. And then of course he's about half plastered when he says something to him like, "Hey, come on down here," and he uses his flattery, kind of like,
His
"So and
love
so
of
says this is
wine.
the best stuff, but I trust your taste better than his. Maybe you could taste it for me and see whether it's worth anything." And he's like, "Okay, yeah, sure." Um, then he follows him down half a mile underground and gets, you know,
That's a horrible way to like. If I remember, like we don't even know why he doesn't like him.
no, you do. It's in the first line.
Oh,
It says, when the thousand injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. So it's
oh, he
like
insulted him. That's
he
right.
insulted him. That's why. That is a very Southern thing, by the way. It's like, I don't like what you said. I'm gonna kill him. Like that's
Then I guess Faulkner will be a good fit for you because
right.
apparently there's a lot of that in his work,
Exactly.
or there's a lot of. Well, one of his books is about like a family burying someone. I forget which one that is.
As I lay dying,
Oh, that's it. Nah.
they're like carrying their mother to the place of burial across the Mississippi countryside, and it's narrated by each member of the family, to include the lady that's dead. Like it's very interesting.
Again, I want to read more Faulkner in the
Yeah,
future, but I haven't gotten around.
yeah, yeah. As I Lay Dying's not super long. That's probably one of the shorter novels of his.
Yeah, I guess I like when because I read like Light in August because that was one people were like, yeah, you could start with that one. And again, I don't know if I was ready for it yet when I read it at the time, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
It
nothing wrong with
happens. Is there Southern literature you would like to cover on your channel? Because there's a lot of that aside from Faulkner.
that. Well, let's see, Southern, probably some Tennessee Williams, um, maybe some Eudora Welty.
Do
She's Southern. Flannery O'Connor, perhaps.
gonna
She's not
do
in public reading.
are you gonna do are you gonna do the Stella thing from what is it? Streetcar Named Desire.
I did that the other day outside of his house. I did like a little TikTok, and I was like, today I'm walking to Tennessee Williams' house because I'm from the same town as he.
Wait, so
Uh,
where are you at? Are you still in Mississippi?
well, I'm back in Mississippi.
Oh,
So
okay.
after my dad died, I moved back because I have really younger brothers. Like I've got brothers. My youngest brother is in high school, so
Holy crap.
I wanted to be around and be somewhat of a dad as far as that goes. Dad's not here, so try to help out with that. Anyway, I'm back in Mississippi, and Columbus is where I was born, where Tennessee Williams was born. So his house that he grew up in is actually the visitors center, and it's a museum. And so outside, I did this little thing where I'm standing outside his house, like Stella. So
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, I saw the old movie with Marlon Brando in it, and he's just shouting her name.
right, very iconic. They have the Stella shouting contest down in New Orleans. We've got a Stella shouting contest in Columbus.
Oh, wow. Like, what's Mississippi like? Cause like I've met some people who are from there, and they're like,
Well, I mean, I
heard it's
suppose
really hot.
like any other place. Well, it's very humid. There
Oh,
there are hotter places, there are more humid places, but it's just a pretty decent mix of sort of warm and humid, and the people talk slow, walk slow. They're good people. There's a lot of good people in Mississippi. Very hospitable, very good food. When you look at Mississippi as 50th in obesity, don't laugh at that. That ought to be an indicator of how good the food is because it's amazing.
well,
Um,
guess I'll have to try the food then.
the food here is unbelievable, and if you don't
Birthplace
think
of
so,
Blues, apparently too.
it
If
is the
that's any
birthplace
blues.
of blues. It's the birthplace of, I mean, a lot of American music because a lot of um, there's a lot of blues roots in different genres,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, a lot of great music artists grew up here, and a lot of great just artistic people in general. James Earl Jones lived in Mississippi. Morgan Freeman's from Mississippi.
Oh wow, I didn't know
Um,
that.
BB King, of course, and a lot of
I was thinking like
John
Robert
John
Johnson.
Grisham. A lot of writers are from Mississippi. A lot of good writing.
I
So
think Faulkner's from Mississippi, isn't he?
yep, he is.
Or he was from Mississippi. That's
Yeah,
right.
Oxford. He settled in a place Oxford. I've been to his house up there. It's called Roanoke,
Oh,
and it's beautiful. It's kind of a museum now too. You can go and there's his pipe and there's his typewriter, and it's a beautiful antebellum home outside of out in the country in Oxford.
yeah. I mean, I think the most consistent thing I've heard it's hot and humid.
Yeah, in the summer it generally is,
I
and
don't know what's like right now. It's January, but
yeah, usually it's rainy. It's usually not snowy. It's usually 30s and 40s and raining. So it's kind of good weather if you're a duck.
yeah. Wait, I thought they liked the warm. That's why they head south, isn't it?
Well, it's an expression for wet.
Oh,
Like wet weather. Some people, you know, whine about. Well, it's raining, man. Well, ducks love the rain, so it's kind of good weather if you're a duck.
I like your complaining voices.
I know. Yeah.
You did the Oh man, that's funny. Oh, you got James Thurber. I read one of his. I forget which one, but I read one of his stories in high school as well.
Yeah, he's hilarious. They've got the James Thurber prize for American humor or whatever for writers,
I
He's
heard they
great.
have like a whole collection of his work. I might pick that up
Oh,
at some
he
point
wrote
and read it.
extensively. There's a lot of stories of his, and they're great. And
Yeah, I know. I mean, I find it hard to believe that there's some people who just write short stories and just like, all right, there you go.
well, as Faulkner said, the highest level of writing is poetry. When you fail that, you go into short stories, and failing these two, you finally delve into novels. That was his take.
that's that's interesting. He's a yeah, no, it's another one. Yeah, no, God, I want to. Now it really got me a hankering for wanting to try Faulkner all of a sudden. But
Yeah, you ought to, ought to at least crack them open,
I've read
see
a
if
Rose
you're
for
ready.
Emily again when I was in. Actually, it was in that theater class I was telling you about. She was like, so there's this lady. Her name's Emily. She's kind of this, eccentric lady, and she's like in love with this guy. The guy might be gay, but we don't know. Then it turns out she was keeping his body in, in her house. I'm like, oh my gosh, ugh, I gotta read this. That's about it in terms of like Faulkner.
Nice.
Did you read a Rose for Emily on your channel or
No, I
yeah
haven't done that one yet. I don't know. Not everything is public domain. Like the Thurber one is not public domain, but I'm kind of like, well, I'll just see if I can get away with that one. So there's so I haven't done that one yet, but I might. I'll check on that one.
oh yeah well that's yeah no it's about oh even did one from one of the Beats, Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Ferlinghetti.
Yeah, yeah. The dog, I think, is that dog?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Is there a particular style of poetry you prefer, or is it just kind of like you're just like yes, all of it?
I like my favorite is sort of the Victorian. I love Tennyson, Byron, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, that kind of everything rhymes, everything sort of lofty. There's some real high ideals. I generally tend to like that kind um, a lot.
Yeah, yeah, I like the Romantics a lot. I don't know. Well, also they were very interesting people, though I probably wouldn't hang out with them because they a lot of them seemed like they might have been huge jerks.
Some of them I think were.
like Shelley was. I think he was. I guess I'll just say it and. I mean, he was nailing like Mary Shelley while he was still married. I'm like, dude, that's not cool. Don't do that.
Yeah, they were. That was an interesting couple right there.
Oh, did you read Frankenstein? I mean, not on your channel, but have you read like the book in general?
Was pieces of it. I've never read the whole thing, but I think that was like some kind of a literary club bet. Like someone was trying to
Yeah,
write the weirdest thing or something like that. Um,
yeah. I still think that's funny. I'm like, hey, you
yeah.
should write a ghost story. She's like, fine. And she,
Sew a bunch of body parts together.
yeah. it's and now it's one of the most iconic horror stories of all time.
Really?
I
Yes.
wonder what she would think if she were looking down. She's like, really? Probably be flabbergasted.
Did that as a joke, guys.
No, yeah, no, it's yes. Wait, have you done Robert Browning on your channel
Uh, a couple.
or on like your live?
Yeah, I've done a few on my live. Um, I just can't remember what it was, but I've done a few. But I do more of his wife,
Oh
Elizabeth.
yeah, his wife was a poet
Elizabeth,
too. I forgot
Elizabeth
about
Browning.
that.
She's one of my favorites. I really like her.
Oh, you're not a fan of the um dark wit of Robert Browning.
Well, I'm a romantic, so I
Oh yeah,
like
okay, yeah.
romantic poetry. So it's not that I dislike others. It's just where I love a good love poem. Robert Burns' "A Red Red Rose" is one of the greatest love poems that there is.
Well, I
Um,
see why you like well, Shakespeare wrote some interesting poetry. Did you read the one where Did you read the one where it's basically the like anti like like my my lover's
Amity's
hair is like
eyes are
string.
nothing like the sun.
Yeah.
Coral is far more red than her lips red. Yeah.
I forget which one that is though, but I like
Uh,
that one.
me too. 130, I think.
Yeah, something like that. But I like that one a lot.
Yeah, I've done that one.
My I remember my English one of my English teachers was like, "Yeah, check that out. That's the first diss track in the history of ever."
And like he goes on to say that he, and yet by heaven I think my love, as good as any, basically. And it's kind of like he's looking at his lover not just for the outward appearance. And so it's whether it's a joke or whatever, it's still like, hey, that's good. It's not all about um,
Yeah, it's like the
love.
Bible. The Lord looks for what's within, or something like
Yeah,
that.
the man looks on the outward appearance, the Lord looks on the heart. That's what, I guess First Samuel somewhere.
So you're like a you know this stuff. Let's go.
Yeah.
No, it's but yeah, no, it's again, yeah, it's like when you read the new Bible, you're just like, no. Again, it's like they're talking, you know. You're just like, man, I don't want to read that, or
Yeah,
not. I don't want
yeah.
to, but it's just kind of.
Well, I actually have theater practice that I need to be getting to. I've got
Oh
rehearsals
well,
tonight.
yeah, I was about to say, well, we're approaching the time I tend to cut off, so Jake, thank you so much for giving me your time. I
Man,
really
yeah, I had a
appreciate it.
great time. Really enjoyed this.
I had a great time. We should do this again at some point. Um,
Definitely.
and keep making that great content. I'll catch up to it eventually.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I hope those texts weren't. Oh no, where are you at?
Well, no, and I apologize for yesterday. I got like totally thrown out of my groove, and then I didn't reach out and say, "Hey, I'm out of my groove." So, yeah,
No, it's okay. I mean,
sorry about that, but I'm glad we were able to work it out.
I was just like sitting here for 30 minutes. I'm like, oh man, did he get the time mixed up?
I'm sorry about that.
I forgot to. I said Central. I hope he didn't get that mixed up. Well, are you in Central Time or
I
what?
am actually, but I
Oh wow,
was.
that's neat.
that-
Okay,
That's how
tell me.
far out of my groove I was. It didn't
Um,
even matter.
but yeah. Anyway, well, just one last thing, and that's just if you have any social media, feel free to share.
Okay, yeah. TikTok, the Cultured Bumpkin, and then YouTube, the Cultured Bumpkin. Those are those are where you'll find me. I do put short stuff on TikTok, and if you want to hear longer stuff, check out the YouTube. And I've got a podcast, that I put all this stuff on mostly. If you're more of a podcaster, and that's the Cultured Bumpkin wherever you get your podcast.
All right. Well, that is it. Again, thank you so much for being so giving with your time,
Absolutely,
and I'm glad we got to do this because yesterday
definitely,
I was like, oh no, I had it planned. But again, we should do this again at some point. And you
definitely.
have a good rest of your day, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Check out his channel; he's very good at what he does,
I really appreciate that.
or at least I think so. So yeah, until next time.